The hunt continues for the Burning Man murderer. Law enforcement is trying to solve the mystery of the homicide of this man that happened in a remote part of the Nevada desert in a temporary city that has vanished as the arts festival has come to an end. The new report on the possible murder weapon found on the scene and what the family of the victim is now calling for in hopes this case is cracked wide open. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. On the surface, it appears there are a lot of elements working against law enforcement in this investigation. You think of the location, a rural part of the desert, a place that has seemingly vanished as this arts festival has come to an end. There was barely any cell service there. And on top of that, if you've ever seen pictures from Burning Man, everyone's in costumes. But could there be a break in this case with a possible murder weapon found? I'm going to get into a new report that just dropped in a moment and what a potential witness has said after this man was found in a pool of blood on the final night of Burning Man.
Ребят, просто зацените размер, Вадимушка выбрал палатку.
Это
Просто
клуб!
не палатка, это какой-то клуб просто.
А включите электричество еще, что-то свет.
Тут нет, тут нужен пауэрбанк. Дискобол, блядь, поставь.
The victim is 37-year-old Vadim Kruglov. He's originally from Russia, but he was living in Washington State. He was an artist who helped build an art installation at Burning Man, according to his friends.
Так, ну идея в чем заключается? Значит,
There's video of what appears to be Vadim drawing out the campsite, an art installation for the festival. One of Vadim's friends referred to him as a, quote, true hero of Burning Man who is always ready to help others. But police say Vadim was murdered on the night of August 30th. The local sheriff said he was found in a pool of blood and it took days to identify him. The Hollywood Reporter spoke to a woman on the condition of anonymity who said she was at the party that Vadim went missing at and she helped notify authorities. She said as they were leaving Burning Man, they saw a woman flag them down. Quote, "We left and on our way out, a woman flagged us down and we opened the window and she was very calm and said to us someone in her tent was bleeding out and might be dead." She said that the woman told them that they didn't try to check for Vadim's pulse because she didn't want to touch him. Now, a friend shared this video of Vadim partying at Burning Man in the days before his death. People have been trying to piece together where exactly he was because the issue with Burning Man is there's really not a lot of cell phone service. So the pictures, the images that you see on social media of people who went to the event are posting them after the fact. Now, if you've never been to Burning Man or just seen pictures of Burning Man, it's a lot to take in. And now imagine trying to solve a murder here. It takes place in Black Rock City, Nevada. It's in the northwest part of the state, more than 2 hours north of Reno. And when you zoom in on Google Maps, you can see this half moon shape here. That's the temporary camp city that roughly 80,000 people build every year around Labor Day for this arts festival. It's a festival that lasts roughly 9 days leading up to Labor Day. And people get together, they wear costumes, they party, they celebrate art and culture and listen to music. And the climax of the event is the burning of the man, which is an art installation that's set on fire. This is a picture of it from a previous event. The Pershing County, Nevada Sheriff's Office said on August 30th, around 9:14 that night, as the man was beginning to burn, deputies were waved over by festival goers who said that they found Kruglov in a pool of blood on the ground. Now, at the time of this recording, we don't know how Kruglov died, but police say when they came across his body, he was, quote, obviously deceased. Deputies said they interviewed people in the immediate area, they gathered evidence, and they blocked off the part of the camp city where Kruglov was found. It wasn't until Wednesday night that law enforcement announced that Kruglov was the victim. The medical examiner said they had to identify him through fingerprints. Before he was identified, his friends were posting pictures of him on social media saying they had lost sight of him and that he was missing. TMZ is reporting that Vadim's wounds were from a knife and a blade was found near the scene. And they say a cell phone was also found near his body, which is being examined, and that could take weeks to come back. I did reach out to the Pershing County Sheriff to just see if that information was accurate. We're waiting to hear back. We know that Kruglov was originally from Russia and he was living in Washington State, and he also had a previous address we found in New York City. His friend shared a message from his dad in Russia. Here's part of what he said.
Он очень чувствовал несправедливость и отстаивал справедливость во всех проявлениях. Я думаю, здесь была такая же ситуация случилась. К сожалению, этот мир несправедлив во многом. Но я, будучи не кровожадным и мирным человеком, Я за справедливость.
There's a GoFundMe that has already raised tens of thousands of dollars to help send Vadim's remains back home to the Siberian city where his family still is today. In working on this story, we searched Vadim Kruglov's name on truthfinder.com, and what came back was an address for Tacoma, Washington, as well as Brooklyn, New York. It also appears he's only had one other interaction with law enforcement. It was a speeding ticket in Ohio. But other than that, his record was clean. At Law&Crime, we partner with Truthfinder and we use it to get details on the people involved in our stories, but even if you don't work in true crime, it can be a great resource to give you some peace of mind, as it's one of the largest public record search services in the United States. And with the paid subscription service, you get access to unlimited reports about almost anyone. And right now you can get 50% off your first month of confidential background reports. Just go to truthfinder.com/OTC. Joining us now to talk about this a little bit more is Dr. Nada Rutherford, the coroner for Richland County, South Carolina. Always great to have you on Law&Crime, Dr. Rutherford. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
As far as what would you say the hurdles are that a coroner in Nevada is dealing with right now when it comes to where this body was found and the condition that it was in?
There are no witnesses. There is so little information that they have to work with. You have to think almost 80,000 people are at this festival. It happened during one of the biggest nights of the entire festival. You have everybody focused on the burning man, and all of a sudden you have this body found in a pool of blood. While people may think they saw something, they're all leaving that event. So how do you catch up to all those people who are potential witnesses? There's so much for law enforcement and for the medical examiner's office, for the investigators who are on scene. There's just so much to try to go through with this many people.
Well, I think too, I mean, everybody's in costumes also. Like, you're starting to see the pictures come out from Burning Man now that it's over, and there's not a lot of cell service there, so people post after the fact, which could be good pieces of evidence, but I mean, you kind of add, it's like if something was to happen at Mardi Gras. It's like people are all dressed up and they have masks on, and then how do you identify people? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of issues. As far as what we know about the victim's body, when you see police say a pool of blood, what does that tell you about the state that it was in?
So one, the thing that I think about most is head wounds, chest wounds are going to give you that pool of blood. So where exactly was the injury? What exactly happened to this person? Again, when you say pool of blood, that means you have a large amount of blood that has pooled around the body. And how long has it been there? We know that head wounds bleed very, very fast, and you can get that kind of pooling of the blood. And how long had it been there? You're outside. You have so many different elements to be concerned about. You have so many people walking through the area. So what are we looking at here? There's so much to try to gather. And then you're in a desert. You're out here. The way that you look when you're at Burning Man is probably not the way you look when you're at your 9-to-5 job. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
What other things did this person have on their body? What clothing were they wearing? Was it something that they specifically wore for the event? What other things are there, like in terms of personal effects? What was near the body? What was touching the body? What's in the pockets if there were pockets? What other things are there that may give us a clue now that we know who this man is? What other things may give us a clue as to why someone would have wanted to hurt him?
And when you think about the conditions, and just in terms of you're in Northwest Nevada, it's in a desert, there's, probably even, I don't know how close it was to the Burning Man, but, that's in the air as well. I mean, how does that impact the coroner's job? Where this body was found, I think of the amount of dirt that was around. Does that pose a challenge when it comes to trying to gather clues from a body?
Yes, it does. And the reason that it poses so many challenges is because not only are you looking at, again, the body itself, but what was kicked up onto the body. Did someone move the body? Did someone turn him or move him? The pooling of the blood, if did he have internal injuries that when he was moved, did it all come out of his mouth? Was there a visible defect that was present? We've had cases where there's no blood on a scene, and as soon as we turn the body, all this blood just comes pouring out because maybe they had a chest wound that we couldn't see because they were bent over. Who saw that body? Who touched that body? Who maneuvered and maybe repositioned that body? And does the post-mortem changes of color and rigor match up with what was seen by investigators?
And when you, and I know there's the term out there, overkill, and we don't know if that's what this was, but he did have to be identified by his fingerprints, and they didn't know who he was for a couple of days. How does, knowing that likely he was defaced just based off of the fingerprint part of it, how does that factor into the timeline that law enforcement puts together? And if they're actually able to get a suspect, be able to put together what actually happened to this victim and how this murder went down?
Again, what was in or around the body? So if he did not have a visibly recognizable face, right? Was he bludgeoned? Was he beaten so about the face that there were no facial features recognizable? We know that we have facial recognition software. We use it all the time at the coroner's office here in South Carolina, but fingerprinting is also an option. But someone's fingerprints may not be in the system if they've never had to be fingerprinted or had a job where that was required. So obviously he had fingerprints in the system. I would want to know where those fingerprints came from. That would be important about maybe reaching out to family or seeing any persons that may have wanted to harm him. Did he talk to his sister or his mom or anyone that may have known him and said, hey, there's this guy here who's bothering me or what have you? You said yourself, and multiple people have stated this across the media about this case, the cell phone service just isn't there. So is there information that we can glean from that? We don't know, but identifying him was a crucial first step. Now we have to try to piece together the puzzle. What was around that body? Was there a rock, a stick, a glass bottle? What was there that may have been used? And again, you're in the middle of a desert. So are there things that you may have missed in looking at the scene? Maybe you thought the stick was supposed to be there, but no one turned it over. Did they do a thorough search? But again, it's going to be so hard to do that type of search when you have this many people.
In law enforcement, they have not said, we've asked, but they haven't said what the murder weapon was or whether it was a stabbing in terms of a knife. I know TMZ had a report out that there was a knife that was found, but it's unclear if that's the murder weapon. Let's say that you find this blade near a body. I mean, what do you take off of that blade? How does that, because we know, I mean, you put, the evidence to the body, I get it, but for the science of it, when you have a blade, what could that tell you about whether it's the murder weapon?
Well, you'd want to see if there's any DNA from the victim on that blade. You'd want to see if there's any blood, fingerprints, anything that may tie that victim to that weapon. That's really what you're looking for. You're just looking for any sort of evidence that may tie those two things together. And then you go down that path. Could it have been his own knife that maybe came out during a scuffle or a fight with someone? Could someone have tried to rob him or take something from him and maybe he pulled out the knife? And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what killed him, but if you can tie those two things together, then maybe, just maybe, you get something that you can use. But I do not envy the investigators on this case, Chris. This is a tough one.
It is. And I think too, I mean, we see the movies, and I know it's cliche in interviews to say like, oh, it's not like the movies, but like a stabbing like this and, for his face not to be there. And I'm not sure if he was killed in a tent where that would be out of sight, but you're clearly in a spot with a lot of people. I mean, in reality, are stabbings something that can be done subtly, like out of sight for people? Maybe if people are focused on the Burning Man, that you could do this to somebody and nobody actually see it and you be able to get away.
Absolutely, Chris. All I have to do is stab you in between your intercostal spaces and get into your pleural cavity, and now you can't even take a breath to be able to scream. So it would suggest to me that someone had some knowledge of the human body, or either they got very, very lucky.
Yeah, it's just so remarkable. Because then now you wonder, there's no. I mean, how common in investigations, and it feels very unique where you don't have, it's like old school. There's no surveillance video. Nobody had, the cell phone pictures are now coming out. We're seeing people post them from the time that they had at Burning Man. It's a city that doesn't even exist anymore because it was up for a little bit of time. It's like, I think of Aladdin when like the thing just disappears. I mean, let's talk about that. Like in terms of the village itself of Burning Man, could that be an issue where it's no longer, if you wanted to gather evidence from some of the fixtures that were there after the fact, it's not there anymore?
No, it's not there. And I'm sure law enforcement can request that the scene be held to some extent the area surrounding. But what about the people who are up and leaving and going back to their regular lives after this 9-day festival? Like they're ready to go home. They're ready to get out of there. But one of the things that I would want to take a look at is what type of registration system do they have? I know you can't just come. It would seem that you have to register in some way. Do they have any sort of LPR system that tracks the license plates of the individuals that are coming and going? But again, this isn't just one or even 10 cars. You've got 80,000 people who are in mass exodus from a location. So trying to hold that scene is going to be extremely difficult. The best that they could pray for is to hold the area where the body was found. But just understand, if I committed this crime, I could walk away from that scene, throw the murder weapon into another tent, and someone may not even notice,
Right. And I think too of this sheriff's office, where this is clearly the biggest event that they would have every year there, and they do cover a vast amount of space on a regular basis, but you do have people who have left, 80,000 people going all over different parts of the world. How do you get the resources to investigate this and track down a lead if someone lived in the United Kingdom and they're able to get out of the country and they're the ones who did it? Or maybe it's someone who lives in California or wherever it may be.
I honestly don't know. I think that it would have to be an international collaborative force that would help to try to solve this crime. Where was he coming from? Did he live in the United States? Was he a citizen? Was he someone who was traveling internationally to come to Burning Man? I think I saw some reports where he may have been trying to gain citizenship here in the U.S. I'm not 100% certain about that, but his fingerprints were on file for something. And so we know at some point he got fingerprinted here, even if he was not a U.S. citizen. So why? Again, those things may lead us to some answers, but I don't know how they solve this without someone coming forward and saying, hey, I witnessed this, or hey, I saw this, or hey, this may be a really tiny detail, but it's something that I noticed. We've seen reports where there have been strange men or strange women, but I'm thinking it's Burning Man. There are lots of strange people that may not seem like your average everyday, person that are out there in the desert at this festival. So again, no detail is too small, and I would just urge the public to just stand up and say something if they saw something.
Right. And it's just, it's even too, like I know people who've gone to Burning Man and you see them on Instagram and pictures and you're like, you work in, regular like software sales, and it's like they look completely different. And then you think of now, like you can just blend right back into society. That probably makes it really difficult. I know the first 48 people talk about, and we're way past that point in this investigation. How difficult as the days go on will it be for law enforcement to actively investigate this case before they do just say, we're kind of just waiting on leads to come in?
Listen, after the first 48 hours in a normal case, and when I say normal, I mean when you have all your resources, the area, you have CIs that you can go and talk to. You have a situation here where even with all of the people who were there, someone is going to have to come forward in order for the police to solve this. It makes you think back to when crimes were solved without GPS technology and being able to ping a cell phone to a tower and triangulate whether someone and someone else were in the same area at the same time. They're going to have to rely on good old fashioned, police work. But from a coroner perspective, I'll tell you this, what was in that body, I would be looking at everything from the stomach contents to what other materials were on that body, because it may lead us to some answers. Was there anyone else's DNA found on that body? So that trace evidence becomes even more important. And if something pops, if something tests positive, can we get to that person to be able to question them and try to get a statement from them. We know that in a festival like that, so many people are dancing with each other, and they may be sharing DNA in some form or fashion, whether it be through sweat or just touching, just merely passing next to someone because of the amount of people who are there. But I think no stone goes unturned in this. And if they have the benefit of having other DNA that pops positive, they're going to have to follow through with all those leads.
When you're investigating as a coroner, I mean, how do you scan every inch of someone's body for what might be a very small trace amount of DNA?
Well, one, you collaborate with your crime scene investigations unit, and you're both taking a look at this body like inch by inch. So no inch goes uncovered, and you have backup to come behind you to make sure that you're not missing anything. So fingernail scrapings, swabs of the body, using special lighting that may illuminate different types of fluids. So collecting those clothing items, making sure to protect them. If they're wet with blood, making sure that you're drying them in a slow drying cabinet so that you preserve any evidence that may be on there. And sometimes it is as tedious as literally scraping off particles from those clothing items to collect them for further analysis.
And once you do that, and say you have something you believe could be, a piece of DNA that could be used, I mean, what's the process then? Like, how long does it take to actually figure out whether it's a match for something that you have in the system?
Well, one, TV has us confused that DNA is something that's super rapid and comes back really, really fast. It can sometimes take weeks in order to find something. And even if you have DNA that tests positive, you may get a 5% chance that this person is related to someone else. You may not get a 100% sample of someone. You may get a bloodline that tests positive. So it's very important for the public to realize that what they see on TV within an hour time frame of a show is not real life. And as fast as we want to be able to do some of these things, some of them require time. Sometimes you have to stain them with certain chemicals to put it under a microscope to be able to take a look at it in a different way. So just realize that this is going to be a slow process, and certainly not fast enough for the family to get the answers that they want. But this is going to take some good old-fashioned detective work. It's going to take collaboration between so many different agencies to put all of the pieces of the puzzle together.
And then just lastly, is there anything I've missed? I mean, you have all the knowledge as a coroner of where, clues could be on the body. What else sticks out to you about what they could be looking into to try to solve this case?
I'll tell you, I don't have all the answers. In a case like this, I will be calling my fellow coroners and saying, hey, what else have I missed? What other things would you look for? Because sometimes it's really easy to take a look at a case from an objective point of view when it's not the pressure, when you're not sitting in the pressure cooker and all that pressure is not on you. So I would actually be calling around to other experts and asking, what other things could we look at here? I would be calling, the forensic anthropologist and saying, is there anything else that we could look at, doing skeletal surveys? What type of damage was actually done to the body? Was this purely soft tissue damage, or was there some skeletal some things involved? Do we need to remove a section of the ribs? Like, let's say they were stabbed in the rib cage. Do we need to remove that section of the ribs for closer analysis? Are there any particles within that wound that may be helpful to find the killer, to find who may have done this?
Yeah, and it feels like it's just such a mystery and such a unique place. Dr. Nada Rutherford, coroner for Richland County, South Carolina. Thanks for breaking this down for us. We always appreciate your time here on Law and Crime.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Chris.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.